Hi, I'm Stu Kagan, and welcome to Born Scrappy, the podcast for scrap metal exporters and traders. Join me in conversation with some of the most experienced traders and operators that have helped shape this incredible industry. In today's special sustainability reporting masterclass, I chat with Tim Ridderbos. Tim is the general manager of Circular by Shapiro Metals. Before this role, he was the director of national accounts for Shapiro. So Tim definitely knows how to look after our recycling customers. He's learned how to make a customer a client for life by adding huge value through sustainability reporting. He gives us some great tips we can implement immediately. In today's episode, we talk about where to begin with sustainability, why it won't happen on Zoom, looking beyond commodities, educating your customers, navigating the Wild West, and so much more. So let's jump into it with Tim. But first, intro. Hey Tim, how are you, mate?
Living the dream. How about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, my man. Just happy to be in Auckland for a little bit. Haven't been
Yeah,
spending a lot of time here, so with the family, spent the day coaching my eldest on the rugby field. So that was fun. But yeah,
nice,
absolutely
nice.
living the dream, my man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's good to be home. You've been kind of a world traveler lately.
have been moving around a lot, so it's good. I'm here for a few weeks, but I will be in Austin any day now for the Gulf Coast event, the REMA Gulf
Nice.
Coast event, which is, yeah, I'm really excited about.
Very good, very good.
You won't be there, right?
I'm not coming to this one, so the first 6 months of this year has been a lot of running around too. So I'm taking a little break the next couple of weeks, and then sometime in July heading out for a big ESG conference in Denver. So actually gonna like stay in the office, get a bunch of work done, follow up on a bunch of projects that I've been neglecting a little bit, and then get back on the road here in a couple of weeks.
Too good. And ESG, I mean, this is exactly what we're going to be talking about really
Mhm.
today. We're delving into sustainability. We want to
Yeah.
understand more about it. We want to understand how you got into it. We'll start getting into those discussions now, but just so everybody understands, how did you get into recycling and how did you kind of fall into the sustainability side as well?
Yeah, yeah. I never pictured myself doing this. I got out of college and I went right into finance. I had insurance and investment licenses, and you know, didn't really know what I wanted to do. It was interesting, but I didn't like it. It wasn't really tangible. I've got a big history in construction. Did that all through high school and college. My family's been in construction. I wanted to do something in that vein, so I actually just started calling the local Caterpillar dealership for like 6 months until they finally let me have a job. So I moved from finance to large, heavy equipment, selling cat all over the St. Louis area. And one of my customers was this company called Shapiro Metals. Didn't know anything about scrap, didn't know anything about the business other than what you see on TV. It's always where there's a big gang happening, in the movies or whatever. So I really didn't know anything like I'd go in there and we'd be selling tractors, and I'd walk by Rick Dobkin's office, and he'd invite me in, and I'd ask him questions about metal markets, right? Because I had the finance background, so I was interested in commodities, and he'd show me his screens and talk to me about it, and we just kept talking, and then one day I was in there doing a deal with Bob Alvarez. He had just come on as the COO of the company. I was noticing a whole bunch of cultural changes that were all incredibly positive. And one day, as I was walking out, he tapped me on the shoulder, asked me to come back into his office, and asked me if I wanted to be part of the team. We talked for about 6 months, and I jumped in. Again, didn't know anything about this business, but I jumped in and never looked back. It's an incredible, incredible industry.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, I guess you're speaking to the converted. Everybody listening to this very much agrees with you on that. And I've spoken to Bob quite a lot. Rick Dobkin's been on the show. Fantastic people. I want to ask what got you into the social media side of it all as well, because a lot of people listening, probably know you from your LinkedIn post. You come across as a super friendly guy. Are you like that in real life? Not sure, but I'm just kidding, winding you up. Great guy in real life.
Don't out me, man. Don't out
Yeah,
me.
yeah. And if for those of you that don't know, Tim is how tall?
6'6".
Yeah, so Tiny Tim, when we met in real life, it was like a bit of a bear hug of a situation going on. But so what got you into the social media side of things?
Yeah, I really got serious with it about a year and a half ago. Judy Ferraro, who's a big name in the industry, has worked with a lot of companies, really was encouraging our team to be more active. And then I'd see people who were really trailblazers in our industry. Thinking of Sacco, Jennifer Betts, Brett, a few people like that. And I decided that it really can't hurt, right? I want to just put myself out there. I want to generate some buzz about Shapiro and what we were doing. And so I just tried, and it was really awkward at first. I really, honestly, even though I'm a salesman and I, do all the sales stuff, for most of my career anyway, I really, don't like the camera that much. But I wanted to lean into it. And so I did. And then I started getting a little bit of success from it, a little bit of opportunity, a little bit of interesting things started happening. I'd get this opportunity to speak on a panel. I got this opportunity to meet these people over here. This person reached out, with an opportunity. I'd go to an ISRI event, now REMA, and someone would come up to me and say, "Hey, I saw your post on LinkedIn," and it's been, just a real easy conversation starter. And once that flywheel started spinning, and I saw the benefit to being out there, to representing what Shapiro's doing, what I'm doing, to just position myself as someone who wants to get to know other people in this industry, especially not being a lifer. I mean, I'm only 7 years into this thing, right? Some people are 3 generations in, so to speak, like Bruce, our owner. So it was really a way to supercharge just my opportunity to meet folks. And yeah, I mean, some of the opportunities that have come from it, some things that I'm working on right now that are 100% only resulting from the social media stuff. It's been incredible. It's going to be real exciting to see where that goes, throughout the next 12 months or so.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I agree wholeheartedly on the social media stuff. Everybody should be doing it. It's a great way to meet people and yeah, to move ahead in this industry. But tell me, you've been doing this for 7 years, but you speak about sustainability more than the rest of us. So you've been doing that for longer than all of us. And that's why I wanted to have you on to talk to us a little bit more about how we can communicate sustainability better, right? So that's not the question, but I hope that's what will come across throughout this episode. And by the end of it, people go, okay, well, when I meet with my clients and my customers that supply me recycled material, I actually can do more, provide them with more data, more reporting, and they will benefit from that, and they will make them a better client, and et cetera, et cetera. Or I will be seen as a better service provider, et cetera. So let's go back to the beginning of the journey. When you joined Shapiro, were they heavy in sustainability?
You know, I'll say from a very high level, we were metals focused only, and that is essential sustainability, right? Recycling metal is such an important thing. Everybody in this industry knows the stat. If you recycle aluminum, it's 95% more efficient than mining new material out of the ground, right? I mean, it is so important for what we do.
As
To
I
take
said
care of
it,
the
I thought to myself, hold on. What do you mean, were they in sustainability? So carry on, but I think the point is more along the lines of, were you promoting the sustainable side of our business,
correct,
or were you just
correct.
operating as a metal recycler?
I think you're exactly right. I mean, that's the transition that we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
Were we a
exactly.
scrap company thinking about
Mm.
scrap in terms of scrap, in terms of commodity, in terms of something that you buy and sell, or were we thinking about it in the lines of the story that we can tell around
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
I think I'll also, point out that at the time, Shapiro this year is 120 years old. For about 113 of those years, it has been only a metals focus. And there's a lot more to sustainability than only metals. Again, it's super essential. But in Shapiro's case, we're only working with industrial manufacturers. So, you can't bring an old car to us, no old washing machines. We're only in factories that are building stuff specifically out of metal. But that's our customer base, right? And so, our evolution really came as our most forward-thinking customers started to evolve, started to think about sustainability in a broader context, and start coming to us with problems. And it was really this leaning in mentality that the company has, this opportunity to fail and learn and try and do new things that really brought us onto this sustainability journey where we can look at things a little more holistically. Sustainability, ESG, all that stuff. We're going to hear about it more and more. A lot of people are already hearing about it a lot, but I think it's going to affect every one of us as the future moves on. And you really from Shapiro's perspective, we had one incredible opportunity. One of our biggest customers reached out to us. They were having an issue with trash. And we're a scrap metal company. We don't want to take care of your trash. We don't want to handle that. At least that was, a mentality that we carried for a long time. But certainly under Bob's leadership and the rest of the leadership team, we got this opportunity from a customer, and we looked at it in a different way. We looked at it beyond just commodities. We looked at it and how can we tell a story? How can we make it more sustainable? And how can we do something that's going to keep material out of a landfill, help save our customers a bunch of money, and do something better for the planet? And so this specific opportunity, this customer had somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 trash pickups a year that were all going to the landfill. They were very light loads in a roll-off. We put in some compactors. We started monitoring their payloads. We diverted all that waste from the landfill to a waste-to-energy facility. And through that process, we were able to pull out a whole bunch of cardboard that was being landfilled and get that recycled as well. The net benefit of the program was essentially we recycled a ton more cardboard. We converted that into trees. We told them how many trees they saved, through all that cardboard they recycled. Instead of having these 400 trips to the landfill every year, now they only had something in the neighborhood of 50 a year, a little less than 50. So 350 diesel burning trucks going back and forth to the landfill weren't burning diesel anymore. That was all gone. And through the efficiency of the program, we saved the customer about $150,000 a year in the trash bill. And again, we weren't doing it for an award. We didn't even know about an award, but at the end of the year, we ended up winning for this big national Fortune 500 company, their global supplier award for sustainability in 2020. And it was a real eye opener. It was a pivotal moment for us where we could, we really took a step back and said, hey, there's something to this where we are making positive impacts in the world. We're making heroes out of our customers. And, the added benefit is we're starting to be thought of as people that can figure out solutions beyond just what we've been traditionally known for.
I go back 20 years ago. I was buying from customers. So a rep, a business development manager, what do you want to call it, for really large metal recycling company in South Africa. And I was in Durban at the time. And the largest account we had was Toyota. It was a huge Toyota plant, and we handled all the metal on their site. And I'll never forget losing that account to a waste company. But what they were offering was reporting and data on all the waste streams. So we ended up still buying the metal, but now we didn't hold the contract anymore. And it's quite interesting because you want to be that person that holds that contract. If you hold the contract, you have the power going forward, right? All of a sudden, they started putting that out on like monthly tenders and then, quarterly reviews. And whereas we had a 5-year contract before that, so you were always getting the metal. Now you're fighting with every other competitor. It's the ability to see which customers, and we'll talk about later probably which customers are the right for this, but which customers you're able to offer more value at, and not to just think, I handle metal, therefore I do the metal. When you go for a walk in their business and you see that they have, like you say, a whole lot of cardboard, paper, whatever it might be, other material that is recyclable, that is going to landfill, offer your assistance. Get in there. And I think when we start speaking sustainability, we're all sustainable. We're recyclers. We've been doing it forever. But I think that's kind of how I'm pitching this term now. It's kind of like, how do we offer more sustainability to our customers? So
Yep.
how do we help them? And we go in there and we see it and we think, oh, well, this is simple. I'm sure they would know how to do this, but they don't, because they're not a logistics company like we are. Because
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
realistically, we're a logistics company collecting material from people.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't see that. They also don't know what is recyclable, what isn't. The waste companies are saying, just throw everything in here because they're going to sort it out whatever they can and make whatever bucks they can on the other side. But most of
Mm-hmm.
it is ending up in landfill, whereas
Yep.
we can come in from the recycling arm. So I think it's a great way to start this conversation with, that's how I see sustainability. Exactly how you came in is what I experienced from the other side, where we actually lost the account.
Mm-hmm.
And over the long term, Toyota Chushu ended up coming in and taking all the recyclables anyway. But I think it was because they had started to learn, well, let's look at sustainability as an enterprise or as a company, and how can we do things better? We'll bring it all into one place and sort it. Not everybody can do that, but we can help smaller enterprises do that. We can help smaller
Mm-hmm.
companies do that. And that's where I think you have a decent amount of passion and more experience than most of us in that field, right?
Yeah. Well, and one thing you said too, I mean, really, I think you nailed it. It's the education part. Our customers, they're drowning in this stuff. They've got all these goals that are set by their boards. They've got very small sustainability departments. Most of the time, this stuff ends up in procurement anyway. So it's somebody who really doesn't care so much about the sustainability. They're just trying to run a spreadsheet and get their bonus at the end of the year. And so they don't really have the systems thinking down to really make the improvements, as long as they can save 10% on their hauling cost a year, squeeze out another few pennies, from a metal bid on a spreadsheet. And so, I think that's been one of the biggest jobs, that I've had over the last few years, that a lot of other folks on our team have had, is just the education of our customers. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, we've sat with a new procurement person and taught them how, fast markets works, right? Taught them how a formula works on their metal. They don't know that stuff. Taught them what stuff is recyclable, what's not, why you
But
should bail this,
Tim, I'm
why
going
you
to
should
jump
not do
in.
that.
I need to
Yeah.
jump in and stop, because it's right in the beginning. The main point of all of that was what you said a minute ago, which was, you spoke to them, you sat with them, you explained to them. If you expect the metal to just arrive at your door, it's one day going to stop.
Yep.
You have to be proactive. You have to have a
Yep.
team or owner operator, whoever it is going to be. I remember sitting with Garrett Tracy in his yard at Sims Brothers, maybe 2-3 months ago, and he had some seriously peculiar material. Like, I'm like, what is that? Like, why? That's not even metal. It's like, oh, because I went onto a site and the guy said they couldn't manage it. This is what they were paying to get rid of it. And he worked out, well, he could actually sell that material if he brought it in and baled it and handled it in a different way. And and we had a conversation with him. They were able to make money and they saved the client a huge amount of money on it. And
Yep.
why did that happen? Because he was in front of the client,
Yes.
not waiting for it to
Oh man.
arrive.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think, COVID changed a lot of things and how people do business, and Zoom and Teams and stuff certainly has got its place and saves, you from burning jet fuel to fly out somewhere for whatever. But I'll tell you what, I mean, there is never going to be a replacement for actually getting on site, showing up, walking around the customer facility, and things change. Like, you might have walked it, 6 months ago, but, we're dealing with it right now with the customer out in Richmond, Virginia. I mean, they are adding a whole new line right now. So, 2 months ago, they didn't have glass. They didn't even have aluminum. They just had steel over there. Now we're shipping in new equipment. We're looking for new partners for the glass. We're setting up some new logistics over there, and it really comes from just showing up. I mean, had we not shown up, they were literally going to throw all that aluminum in their steel can. Which, I mean, I guess as a scrappy person might enjoy that. I would also say one of the biggest things we do for our customers is just try and tell them every bit of information that we can give them. Because if they're happy, if we're adding that value, and we'll report that increase, we'll say, okay, hey, you were going to throw this all in your steel roll off. Here's your total tonnage of aluminum this year. Here's how much we paid you. This is the type of partnership that we want with our customers. And it doesn't happen on Zoom. It doesn't happen, when you're not in the plant. You've got to get on site. You got to walk it. You got to be familiar, not just with the procurement person or the ESG person or the plant manager. You got to talk to the guys who are running the machines, the material handlers. We had this one situation in Tulsa a couple of years ago. big aerospace company, so big in fact that they needed like a $500,000 pucking machine for just specifically their 7050 aluminum. And we started getting some downgrades on it. We noticed there was some mixing in it. So we got on site, we walked around. We actually spent a couple of days there because it was a significant revenue difference for this customer for, mixed aerospace versus just straight 7050, obviously, on the volumes that they had. And we were walking around, we were talking to the guys on the ground, the material handlers, and we ended up identifying the problem. In this case, the lowest paid guy with the highest turnover in the whole facility historically is the guy who drives the forklift from the pucking machine to the roll off where we're collecting the pucks. And that guy was always getting replaced, that position was always getting replaced. There was always somebody doing that forklift seat. Lowest paid guy in the entire organization. Well, that guy, we calculated it was something like $250,000 or $300,000 worth of revenue in his hands just based on where he would dump his pucks and what he would dump into that pucking machine. And so we ended up actually getting some good conversations with management there. We don't obviously control people's pay scale, but, we help tell them like, hey, like this is a key critical, piece of your organization. It affects your bottom line in a huge way, and we helped them identify it. We went in and we did a whole bunch of training for all their operators of the machines. And, after that, we really didn't have any problems with it. But again, we wouldn't have been able to help them had we just tried to do it all via Zoom. So, I think that's such a big lesson. Got to get on site, get those boots on, shake some hands, and meet everybody you can, because it might be that guy at the machine that's going to tell you the little bit of information. Oh yeah, Jimmy, he's been here for like 3 days, just like the last 3 Jimmys that we hired. That guy, that position never sticks around, right? So critical. So
Yeah,
critical.
absolutely. I agree completely. Um, Tell me, what's the sentiment at the moment on the manufacturing side when it comes to sustainability? Are you having to knock on doors? Are people coming to you? Are they happy to hear from you? What's going on
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, we've got a lot of people coming to us. Certainly new business opportunities for sure, but a lot of our existing accounts are looking for help in a lot of different ways. They're lost. I remember just a year ago we were up in Chicago at a corporate office with the head of EH&S for again another large company, and we were asking questions. Hey, what's your plan for scope 1? What's your plan for scope 2? What are you thinking for scope 3? And I'll never forget it, but this head of EHS, kind of looked at their counterpart there, and their counterpart kind of looked back at them and kind of did one of, I don't know. And when we go to conferences for ESG that are specifically for CFOs and different folks, ESG positions within these companies, what we keep hearing is there's just a lot of confusion. There's a lot of trepidation. There's understaffed departments, and there's not a lot of data to support any of it. Everybody's kind of in the Wild West for trying to figure out what solution they're going to have to really expensive, high-end, fully built-out systems to, hey, we're running this whole thing on a spreadsheet until we can get somebody else to help us. So it's a lot. Some of the stuff falls into our purview. I mean, obviously, we're trying to take a broad stance on sustainability, materials, commodities, even some circular programs we're doing with customers. And some of it doesn't. I mean, their energy uses and that sort of thing. They're going to be, looking for potentially other solutions outside of what we can offer. But I think one of the things that we've done a really good job with is building an ecosystem of solutions, so that even if it's not something that I can help with, hey, there's this consultant group over here that does this, or hey, there's this guy over here that's really plugged in with the Department of Energy, and there's some money over here for this type of project. And so we really want to, if we can't be helping, we just want to be making friends with people and helping them make friends with people that can bring solutions.
An ecosystem of solutions.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I love that. I mean, people could use that in their business in so many different ways. I think it's a brilliant term. I'm definitely going to be using it. Very, very cool. Tell me now, when you are meeting with these guys and you're meeting with CFOs want data, they want numbers, right? When it comes to data and sustainability and reporting, what could we be doing now for our clients, and where do you see the edge or the opportunity?
Yeah. I think a lot of folks in this industry, especially the big players are going in the right direction with it. I had a customer a couple of years ago, again, just sticking to the commodity side, where, and I guess I'll back up too. We are really getting to the point where we don't do a lot of business blind. We ask for data up front. We want to know what's going on, what you've done in the past, what your current situation looks like. And, so we'll ask people for this information. We had one a couple of years ago. It was a customer that their sites spanned Canada, Mexico, and really coast to coast here in the United States. And we asked for their data, and every site had a different story, who was supposed to collect the data, where it was. It was all very disparate. Nothing was put together. They had, however many different vendors handling however many different commodities. And there was one in particular down in Monterrey, Mexico, where we finally got the data after like 6 months of asking for it. And there was three commodities. It was steel, it was cardboard, and it was wood. That was it, and some volumes and whatever. And so we dug into it. We got on site. We looked around. We found a bunch of stuff, like copper was going in the trash. I mean, it was wild.
Oh, wow.
So we ended up getting in, right, and again, I mean,
I'd like you to introduce me. If you can introduce me to that client, I know a couple ways to make money there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, they did. I mean, they did. I mean, we went down there, and after 6 months, we ran a report for the corporate guy we were working with, and he was thrilled. We were on track for six-figure improvement for him, obviously, and we ended up reporting 17 different commodities, out of those three that we were originally given. It's hugely helpful for them. They have to understand, what's leaving their facility. This is all important stuff. Not only that, the other thing is they can't get better, unless they measure it to start. I mean, scope 1, 2, and 3, the CSRD in the EU, is not here just for fun. It's not here just for people to have an exercise. I mean, the whole purpose of all this stuff is to get better. So if you go back to the example of us doing that waste energy program, now I've got data that I can report to the customer. We can say, hey, congratulations, you've done all this savings, you've improved your payload, you've taken all the stuff out of the waste, out of the trash, and brought it into waste energy or recycling. High five. But I also noticed, hey, your payloads are dipping to 5 tons. You really should be at 6, 7 tons with the equipment we have on site there. You can have another 20% efficiency, 20% savings, if you do this, and this, and we're going to help you monitor it, right? So it's really, especially from the materials side, like if you can help baseline it and measure it for them, that's like the first step in actually helping them get better. And again, I mean, unless you're proactive like that, I got a million stories just like your Toyota story, where you just end up on the spreadsheet. It's the worst feeling when you do that. And again, unless you're proactive about it. I mean, we had one. I mean, it was a long-term customer. I think Shapiro had it for like 20 years. It had been bought and then bought again, and then was owned by private equity, also in Chicago, it turns out. And they had this new guy out of college, didn't know anything about scrap. We spent a year educating him, and he decided, the whole company decided, to put it all just on spreadsheet. It was 100% spreadsheet, and we worked so hard on it. I mean, I remember working with Judy Ferraro on Christmas night, like at 11 o'clock at night, trying to finish up some proposals and some PowerPoints we had, and this whole big presentation. And after all that, we lost it. It was just a spreadsheet. A 20-year relationship, none of it mattered. And so it helps our industry to be proactive. It helps our individual businesses to be proactive. At the end of the day too, it's helping make the planet better together as we're working with each other in that ecosystem, as we're working with our customers. So all that is again going to continue to grow in importance.
It's the kind of stuff that I talk about on LinkedIn. A whole bunch of us talk about. It's be proactive, build your own future. Don't look back and kick yourself and go, oh, I should have, or this happened to me. Well, what we're saying is that this is happening. So be aware of it. Start making the changes. Start implementing where you can, or what you can, which hopefully we'll go into a little bit more as well, what they can do about it. But know that there is more of a focus on the term sustainability, and just recycling your metal isn't enough anymore. And I'm not talking about from our side. I'm talking about from our customers, where the metal comes from. It's not enough for them to just recycle it. They need to report on it, right? They need to report on the other waste streams, but that's a headache. They don't want to do that themselves. Let one of these people that are currently servicing them, whether it's a waste provider, a metal recycler, whether it's a whole bunch of other service providers, whoever's going to put their hand up and say, well, I'll do that reporting for you, they're going to probably give it to them because it's something that can take off them. Like you said, it's usually a procurement guy. He
Yeah.
isn't wanting to do this. He doesn't want to sit with all these spreadsheets. Somebody come to me and just handle it for me, and you can have the whole contract, and the rest of them can all answer to you.
Yeah.
Know that
Yeah.
that's going to happen, everybody, and be proactive and let the metal recyclers hold it. We want to hold those contracts, but don't let it get taken from you.
Yeah. And there's going to be competition, not just from this industry. I mean, Waste Management is dumping, a lot of money. I mean, they bought another company last week in the sustainability space. I mean, there's a lot of people getting in a lot of different directions. And you're right. There's going to be people on top, and there's, going to be people underneath that do end up on the spreadsheets, right? And so it's going to be that continual innovation, that continual, being on site, that continual leaning in to find those solutions. In the sustainability space is really going to be key in the future.
So Tim, let's imagine you're going to your customer. You currently are a service provider. I always say to my guys, they see you as a logistics person. You're just collecting their bins for them, right? How can you go in there and sell this for the first time to somebody? So before they come to you, which could be years down the line, but it's coming, before they come to you, how can the listeners go, well, I'm going to be proactive. I've got a really good accountant. I know that they do waste and they do some cardboard. I'm going to take on all the reporting and therefore hold the key at this customer and the relationship. How do you go in there and sell that for the first time?
Mm-hmm. I think the thing that you got to start with is the fact that even the most sustainable companies right now are not going to do any sustainability program unless there's a business case to it. You
Of
could
course.
have all these different ideas and all these different things that are really great, but you have to make sustainability sustainable. Like that's the very first thing. I mean, the most forward thinking, the most sustainable companies we work with, they still require the business case. And so that's something that you're always going to have to think about. They're not going to move forward without that. What are the big ticket items? What are the big things that you're seeing that could improve? I also think you want to get as many stakeholders in your corner as possible and understand what their goals are. A lot of what we do at our company is upfront research, getting on their websites, understanding, what's in their sustainability reports. All the big guys are putting those out these days. They're telling you in those reports exactly what they want to do. Are they interested in water savings? Are they interested in energy? Do they have a zero landfill goal? I mean, they're giving you the path. And the nice thing about it, if they're in procurement, again, more CEOs and C-level folks are now compensated on hitting sustainability goals than ever before. I mean, these metrics are the same things that are going to get the people that you're working with their Christmas bonus. So that upfront research to look at these things, it's the pathway. So I'd always start there, especially if you haven't had the sustainability conversations with your customers. That's a great place to begin.
So I always love the sales side of things, and obviously for our industry we're buying, but we're salespeople. Um, and usually on Born Scrappy we usually focus on the trading side of things. That's a different sales, but now on the sales side, what you just said it gave me an idea. So walk into your relationship person, so the person you have a relationship with at a key account of yours who's supplying you material. Do your homework first, find out what their C suite is talking about. So, what the big bosses want achieved, and it's coming out in their reports. Right? And if they're not that big and they don't have those reports, try to do your homework where possible and walk into the procurement manager's office and say, I have a way to make you the rock star.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
if you can do that, you're his best friend.
Yes. Yes.
And you say, you know that reporting that they're probably asking for and you don't have the time for? Let me do it for you. We're
Yep.
already taking away 90% of your material. Like, let me do it for you. But in order to do it, let's talk about an agreement where, I look after your waste as well, but they'll just subcontract out to me. As soon as somebody feels that you're there to actually add value and help them personally, like, you hear what I'm saying? Like, you're their best friend.
It's the most beautiful thing when that happens. I mean, when you become the easy button that they're picking up the phone and calling when they got an issue, when they're looking for. I mean, I've got one customer where we did a bunch of great stuff for them, high fives, made it up to the C-suite. big, again, multi-location manufacturer. Everything was great. And he realized what we could do when we don't think about things in a spreadsheet, when we think about things from a systems perspective. We became his easy button, and it was incredible. He'd set up calls with other sites in the organization. I wouldn't say a word for the first 10 minutes. This guy gets on and he talks about how great Shapiro was, what we did, how we helped, what we can do, the things that we want to talk about. I mean, they literally, they sell for you. So when you get on, it's okay. Hey, I need this data, and here's what I like to do, and here's where I want to start, and everybody's jazzed and going the same direction. I mean, it's the most beautiful thing when you get to that point, and it takes can take a long time. Sometimes it's about being in that seat, that territory, that customer. For a while, this is a slow moving business for the most part when you're trying to acquire new accounts or break in or find something new and great to do for somebody. But when those opportunities happen, you got to lean in, you got to take it, because when you start flowing with a customer like that, you're not even in different companies anymore. You're on the same team. You're working for the same goals, and it's beautiful.
That's exactly right. So I say, once you're in, mark your territory. So what I mean by that is when you have that relationship, I'll never forget, we had an incredible commercial manager. He used to look after all of the customers, and he used to place massive, like, not posters, they were like billboards on at the waste, wherever the waste streams were sorted at a large account, right? Where you've got all the multiple bins, you've got paper, and he used to put a massive sign there, and it would used to say, like, other company was called the Reclamation Group, and you would say, like, the Reclamation Group and Toyota working hand in hand for sustainability. Like, anybody who goes there is going, well, we know who runs this place. Yeah. Right? And the way the client loves it, because when they bring in the executives, what they see is them and a recycling company working hand in hand for sustainability. Like, it's a massive advert on their own site when they bring in any key stakeholders. Like, it's a great visual for these guys. Usually they walk in there, it's a big mess. Now there's a big sign that says, we're working hand in hand. So that's what I mean by market territory, like, get in there and then own that space. But look, we can talk about customer service and keep going further and further and further down that avenue. But what barriers are there for implementing this sort of sustainability program? So when John walks in or Joe walks in and he goes and he says, hey, mate, I look after all your metal, let me give you some sustainability reporting, what are the blockers he's going to have?
I think the biggest one is the priority list, right? So I've got deals hanging out there right now for tens of thousands. A couple of them are six figures of savings for a customer. In my business, I think that's incredible. Boy, if I can save you six figures, this is wonderful. Like, what a great deal. This is the most exciting thing that I'm doing. Like, I'd love it. And then you talk to him, it's like, okay, that's great, but I'm putting in a $30 million automated line to make my product, right? Your $100,000, that's super. If I'm, close to getting my bonus this year and I need some more savings, I'll talk to you, right? So that's the biggest thing. And unfortunately in our industry, the problem is, at least from our manufacturer customer perspectives, is, waste is always the thing that's the last thing that they think about. It's, usually a program that was set up. It's, again, they don't have data, they don't have KPIs around it. It's the Wild West. There's not a lot of tracking. There's not a lot of data out there for a lot of customers. Some have it, but a lot don't still. It's the Wild West, and it's a hassle. It's trouble. It's change. And so, of all the barriers that you run into, it's that. And the only thing that I've figured out to overcome that, well, it's really two things. It's consistent persistency. You are going to be with them. You're going to follow up when you're in town. You're ask them to have a meal with you, or if they're busy, you're dropping off donuts in your hat or whatever, like, just so that they know that you were there. And you might do that for a couple of years, and then one day they have a bad day with their provider and you're the first card on their stack, and you're getting to make the change there. But that can take years, and it has taken years in a lot of cases. But
I like the saying,
the second thing,
persistence beats resistance.
That's it. That's exactly it, man. It's water dripping on a rock, man. It'll open that thing up eventually. Yeah. And then the other thing is it's pipeline, right? I don't know about everybody else's business, but again, it can take years for us to bring on a new account, right? And that's just even when you've got a great story to tell, it can take years to do it. The only other, antidote to that is building a huge pipeline. Like it doesn't matter if an account takes 2 years to close, if you've got 100 opportunities that are all real and that you're being persistent on, that you're following up on, that you're continuing to develop, that as you're closing stuff, you're still filling that pipeline. Then okay, that's great. I'm not in a rush. That also helps as you're dealing with your customers. You're not freaking out if they're delaying. You're not being pushy. You're going to be there when it's their time, right? You're going to be ready for it when it rises to the level of their priority list. You're going to push them a little bit. You're going to talk to them. You're going to try and find all the ways that you can make it happen. But if you've got a big solid pipeline that you're confident in, like that puts you in such a great position when you're having these conversations because you want to help, but you can't care more about it than they do. You're not going to make progress until it's at the top of their list.
Tim, what's the one thing, if I went into that one client right now, what's the one thing I should try and sell them on? Because you don't want to get in there and offer them the world, especially for the guys that aren't as advanced as you and Shapiro are at offering the service. You go into your customer you currently have and you want to offer, where should you start?
Hmm. I mean, it can look so different for everybody. I mean, but I'll tell you, there's so much low hanging fruit out there. And almost every customer that's out there that you go see, I mean, there is something that's an issue. There's something that's a cost overrun. There's something that's being mixed, but generally there's going to be low hanging fruit. And whether that's, hey, you guys are sending out all this loose cardboard and why are you doing that? Or, oh, you're not getting paid for this, or this is all mixed over here. I mean, that's the easy basic stuff, that you can look for. Oh, hey, I see that, 75% of what's in your dumpster over there is reusable pallets. Well, hey, let me tell you something. Instead of paying to have those picked up and paying to have them, hauled to the landfill, we can give you a little credit for those,
Okay.
and then build the business case, right? Build the business case, make it easy for them. That's always going to be things that you can put in your favor when you're thinking about it in those terms.
So it's not necessarily something like arriving at their door and say, hey, I can report on your waste, which is what I was probably thinking. It's more about go and find a pain point where they don't even know it's painful yet. Make it painful by telling them. So find something, there's a lot of cardboard going in your waste, you're paying for that, you could get paid to have it removed, you can then add it into sustainability scorecard, etc., etc. All of a sudden, now that becomes a pain point, and then give them a way to solve the problem. That's what you should be looking for. So you can't answer where the easy way is to go in, but you're saying that everybody's going to have an opportunity. Spend your time in the business looking for it.
Yeah, and don't make assumptions, right? Like, somebody might not care at all at the level that you're speaking with, might not care at all about the reporting. In fact, he, like many companies, doesn't have enough labor. He's stretched too thin. He's doing three other people's jobs because they've all left or been fired or whatever. And he just needs things to be easy. He can't add another thing to his plate. So you also got to be real sensitive to what somebody's really thinking about at any given moment. Because you might be saying, hey, sustainability, hey, data. And he might just be saying, hey, I'm drowning. I am drowning
Exactly.
and I can't think of another thing to add to my plate, another project. And so again, I mean, there's a lot of long-term, relationships that you're going to build. And, the other thing too is if you get the luxury, if you're a new business development, to work with people that you just generally want to be with, people that are your friends, people that you can make friends with, people that you got the same interest with, like the relationship changes. It becomes something where, hey, like I'm in town, let's grab a lunch, let's hang out, let's go to the game, let's go, sporting clay shooting or fishing or whatever you want to do. That then you're hanging out with somebody that you just enjoy hanging out with. It's always going to be a commercial relationship, right? You always keep that in mind. But, finding those types of people that you just naturally click with, that's a way to, build friends in business and eventually do some business together too.
But that's a whole nother episode on sales. Like that I could talk about for days. I absolutely love that. Let's just stick to sustainability though. How do you identify the kind of customers that you can go and have an impact with and try and go with that angle?
Yeah. I think we've got to be aligned in our cultures. Shapiro's tagline is, make the planet better together. And that's what we want to do. We are interested in working with customers who have that idea as well. There's a pretty big customer that I'm thinking of, and let's just say they make widgets, and they wouldn't call themselves a maker of widgets. They would call themselves a sustainability company who happens to make widgets that are going to help with sustainability, right? And so, if you're in the sustainability game, it's important to think about, are you talking to somebody who's really receptive to the message that you got? Or are you talking to somebody who, maybe is just greenwashing? Maybe they just say it and they don't really care. Because there's a lot of that happens too. Because you kind of got to say it if you're a corporate company. You kind of got to, make these commitments and talk about these things, and you got to put out your report. And you can tell pretty quickly, especially in the EH&S group, and seeing, what type of resources that group has and how much pull that group has in the epic fight between EH&S sustainability and the purchasing department, and kind of who wins those battles and who's able to say, hey, we want to do this because it's the right thing to do. So as you continue to learn a little more about the company culture, you're going to see if it aligns with you, what your goals are. And again, that's going to help you jump in the stream, catch the current, and move things along a lot faster.
Okay, Tim. So what are 3 things that if somebody listening wanted to go and start pitching this to their customers, what are the 3 things you think they should start and can start doing immediately?
Yeah. I think the first and biggest thing is education. I thought I knew about recycling until I actually started to get educated on it. And again, I'm not a lifer. When I started getting some formal education in this, I had been in the business for, about 5.5 years. So I knew a lot about recycling, but I didn't really think about things in systems. I didn't think about things in ecosystems. I didn't think about things on a global perspective or where some of the issues are from an economic perspective. Like the education has allowed me to have better conversations with the sustainability counterparts in these big corporations, right? They are smart. They've all gone to school for it. They are generally incredibly passionate about it, and they are locked in to what is happening from a legislative standpoint, from an economic standpoint, from all the things that they need to be thinking about. They're doing that every day, and again, I'm trying to get just a little bit of credibility in that space, as I continue to learn. But it's so important to do that, and a lot of companies have education payback opportunities, right? I think most of, and I've pretty much only worked for small. I think almost every single one of them has had some sort of tuition reimbursement program. And so that'd be the first thing I do is, man, if you got the margin in your time and your company supports it, I'd start going after that right away. In that vein as well, there are a lot of people in this industry who are really, really smart with sustainability. The first one I think about is Carrie Bliss from Padnos. She was really the first one in the industry where I saw she was a real cycler, as the Padnos folks say. And I was able to sit down and have a conversation with her, and she started opening my eyes to plastics and other stuff and helping me think about things in a way that, I had not thought about before. And that, I think that was a pivotal thing just to really start me on my own journey. Say, hey, there's a lot more to this recycling game than I know, and I've got to get smart on it quick. I think that was only one thing.
There was only one thing. It was a really long
That's
thing.
a big thing. It's a big
Still
thing.
one thing. So what we could start with now is education. Is there anything else you would touch on there, or you think that's where everybody? It's probably a great point anyway. Everybody should start educating. So okay, so you spoke to Kerry at Patnos. Who else?
Yeah.
I mean, what else can people do right now? If somebody says, I want to start seeing customers, but first I want to get educated, do they go look for a college degree? Obviously not. I mean, they're not going to start
There's certificates out there. There's programs out there. If you Google sustainability certificate, there'll be a million that pop up. If anybody's got questions on a couple things, reach out to me. I'd be happy to kind of point you in a couple different directions. But those resources are abundant at all different levels. I mean, from a couple $100 to get you in the door on an online, at your own pace type class. I mean, they're everywhere. So it's pretty available if again you got the time and the backing to do it.
Did you start with sustainability for dummies?
Yeah, the big yellow book with the spit guy in the front. That was it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was you, man. Awesome. Okay,
that was
so we run. Yeah, we this has gone on for way too long, but the perfect amount of time. Loving it, but from experience that we can sit and chat for days. So, who would you like to see next on Born Scrappy?
Oh boy. All right. Well, I've got a few. I mean, I think Carrie Bliss would be great. Anna Tompkins from Sims would be awesome. Definitely got to put Bob Alvarez out there. I don't want to go too Shapiro heavy on your show. You've already
Bob's
had Rick. Now
still.
you got me.
I'm
But
waiting for
Bob,
Bob. I'm waiting for Bob. We're meant to be doing it.
oh, great. He is one of the most dynamic guys out there. And then throw out a wild card. Steve Zusman from Metro out on the West Coast. He is just a real dynamic guy. Super interesting. Every time I'm with him, I'm just kind of sitting there like this. Just
Cool.
he's great to listen to. So I've really appreciated working with his business and getting to know him a little bit.
Cool.
He definitely be one for the list.
Brilliant. Definitely going to reach out to him. Let's end in the normal way. Quick fire. Favorite TV series or movie?
All right, I got to go. Clear and Present Danger. One of the
Wow.
best movies of all time, man.
Is that
I,
like
I,
early
I probably
90s?
watch it once a year.
Is that like early 90s?
Yeah,
Who
early '90s.
who
Harrison
was in it?
Ford. I mean,
Harrison.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
CIA stuff and
Cool. Got you.
Black Ops, and it's great. It's really good.
You can't
Peak,
really
peak
hide
Ford
much.
there. Peak
You're
Ford.
6'6". You're not really getting in through little areas and hiding. We'd see you coming
No,
from a
no,
mile away.
not at all.
Favorite place to visit?
Oh, Holland, Michigan. So got a lot of family from there. I'm 100% Dutch, so I get my Dutch kick when I go up there. It's a beautiful place right on Lake Michigan.
Is it called Holland, Michigan? Like Holland, like
Holland,
Netherlands?
Michigan. Yes,
Oh,
yes,
and there's a lot
yes,
of Dutch
yes.
people there.
Very Dutch. Yes, very Dutch.
All being
There's
Holland,
Windmill
yes.
Island. There's Tulip
Cool.
Time Festival.
Wow.
In fact, if you want to get your own wooden shoes, you can go to the wooden shoe factory and they'll fit you up with a pair. Oh yeah,
I've actually been looking for some, so my wife would be very
wonderful,
excited.
wonderful. I know a
Yeah.
guy. I know a guy.
Hook
I'll
me
get you
up,
set up.
man. What's have you got a favorite book?
Recently I read Superabundance, which is a sustainability book. It's pretty interesting. It's a little contrarian to a lot of the current sustainability thought, but I think it's really good to hear both sides of arguments because you hear a lot of doom and gloom, and these guys are presenting some things from a positive standpoint, specifically around how humans have the ability to adapt, to change, to be innovative in the face of really big problems. And we've done that throughout history. So it's a real interesting book
Cool.
and maybe a different part of the conversation around
Mm.
sustainability that you might not hear so much.
Yeah, awesome. A favorite quote?
Oh boy. Okay. So when I was graduating college, the gentleman who started Amway came to speak to us, Rich DeVos, another Dutch guy from the Holland, Grand Rapids area. And he said at the end of his speech, as you go out in the world, you can decide whether or not you're going to hang with pigeons or eagles, but whichever one you hang out with is going to be the kind of bird you are. Obviously, eagles soar. They got good vantage points. Pigeons are kind of on the ground pecking.
Shit on your
And,
car.
and it has to do with really the kind of person you want to be on the inside, what you want to represent, and again, I mean, I just really believe that the folks you surround yourself with, it's the best predictor of who you're going to be.
Yeah, great way to end. I agree completely. That's awesome. Tim, this has been lots of fun, man. Thanks for being on Born Scrappy.
Hey, my pleasure. Anytime.
Cheers, mate.